Hello, and thank you for tuning in to my channel. I'm making a lot of changes to the Swan Song Manifesto this month. This month is the month of June, and this is the first video that I'm going to be posting for my channels. Now, I think a lot of people are aware that I'm dealing with some, I'm going to call them organizational structure changes. So this is the first video that I'm going to be posting for the month, and for the first video that I'm going to be posting on my other channel, all for the Swan Song Manifesto. Now, for those of you who have not seen I did a little bit of an autobiography, and I was actually surprised at how long it took me. I wanted to make the autobiography, longer than what it was, but when I actually completed it, okay, I realized that it was just a little shy of 4 hours. Now, the name of that is Flipping the Nazi Experiment, the conclusion, okay? And I will post a link in the description box. Today's video is a continuation of Flipping the Nazi Experiment, since it places emphasis on the discontented. This video is completely about the discontented, recognizing who the discontented are, accepting the fact that perhaps maybe you might be one of the discontented, recognizing it, detaching from the mindset of the discontented, and moving on from the vibrational state, and giving you coping skills on how to do that. So let's get into the video. Now, many of you are aware that I do have a YouTube channel, a current YouTube channel, and I have mentioned that I have dealt with people kind of, screwing up with my numbers, not being able to get accurate information, mainly because I have dealt with a lot of bullying online as well as in the workplace. Okay, so this kind of goes into the category of dealing with some of the issues of bullying and how you overcome it and how you deal with it. Just keep moving. Anyway, I think most people who've heard of watched those videos um, have a pretty good idea of my experiences with the discontented in the workplace. Some of the people that I've encountered, if I would go to maybe a grocery store or a bank or whatever, people would be very rude, and so there's many experiences that I've had with people who were of this discontented group. Okay, and it's not just my stories. Okay, there's a lot of people who post stories about dealing with all kinds of abuse, as well. Like, I know I'm not the only targeted individual. You'll be surprised how many targeted individuals there actually are in this country as well as abroad. Okay, but what these people are dealing with is a lot of narcissistic abuse and a lot of trauma. Okay, and these abusive people come in the form of friends, co-workers, family members, and yeah, people in your inner circle. Okay, and they could be current friends, they could be friends from the past. Okay, but what it is dealing with long time family and friends and family, dealing with betrayals, gossip, and the pain that it causes. Okay, now when you get down to it, the reason why I believe that most people fight is because they have an idea of what happiness is, and they want to create competitions to get it. I'm sure just about everyone has an idea of what happiness is. Um, when you look at the word happiness in the dictionary, I tend to like the second definition the best, which is an agreeable feeling or condition of the soul arising from good fortune or propitious happening of any kind, the possession of those circumstances or that state of being which is attended with enjoyment, the state of being happy, contentment, joyful satisfaction, felicity, and blessedness. Now, this would be my idea of what happiness was when I was growing up. I think a lot of people remember me as somebody who was constantly laughing. When I look at some of my old yearbooks, which I do not possess anymore, but I remember a lot of people would sign my yearbooks, and there was always some quote about always seeing me and I'm always laughing or smiling. Okay, and now mind you, I dealt with a lot of bullying. Okay, but I always had a sense of humor, and I always knew that I loved laughing, being silly, being goofy, and being absurd. Okay, and I also would be kind of annoying to people with it. And the funny thing is this is how people knew me, okay? And the fact is, I've always had two sides of me. And we tend to be comfortable with certain people, and we tend to be, um, show more of ourselves to people that we feel more relaxed to. Now, I think just about everybody saw the side of me that loved to laugh, okay? And so, of course, that to me was my goal and my idea of happiness. Now, of course, I knew that I always wanted to have my humor attached to everything. I knew I loved laughing, and the reason why I'm showing the smiley where it's crying while I was laughing is because this is how I used to be. I mean, I used to crack some jokes that like nobody would understand, but I took pleasure in it. I would laugh, get on the floor. I remember there were times where like my teacher would have to like literally tell me to go stand outside and hug a tree or something until I would calm down. I wanted to always be laughing. Now I gotta say that I had this view of happiness, of laughing till I was crying, hopefully almost every day, or at least almost every other day, for quite a while. Okay, so I would say, this was in my head. My goal was to just like always be around comedy, laughing, enjoyment, being silly, whatever, and creative and all the other things too. But basically, what I was looking for was always a good time. I love the rush of laughter. So, I would say when I was a kid, teenager, all the way up till I would say my mid 30s. Okay. And that's when I started realizing that that's completely unrealistic. Now they call this emoji the neutral emoji. Okay. He's not like overly laughing. He's not very sad. He's just kind of sitting there with his mouth like, you know, whatever. I would say that as I got in my mid 30s, I started realizing that I was very disappointed. Just disappointed in like behavior of people, um, the unfair treatment that I was receiving, not exactly understanding that I was part of an experiment, but still, I mean, I just started realizing I'm just really like, people are just getting icky. And I really didn't see how it could possibly happen, to constantly have those kind of good times that I envisioned. Okay. In fact, I started to realize that, okay, life is kind of a battle. Okay. Because I would say, like, our biggest day, or I mean, our biggest time slot, okay, is that we devote most of our time, I would say, to work. Okay. And I think everybody knows that I'm pretty much the poster child for workplace mobbing. Okay. So I never really had a stable foundation. And for years and years and years and years, I was always falling down, starting all over again, only so I could fall back down. You know what I mean? And after a certain amount of time, you're hoping that you're going to be laughing till you're crying, right? But then all of a sudden you start thinking, okay, I'm starting to see this evil in just about everybody. So you wonder, is it, what's going on? So you start to be realistic, okay? Happiness, I started to focus on what the moments that made me happy, what gave me happiness, and I understood that I could not receive happiness externally, okay? And I understand that I am a unique person, meaning like I was a victim of being a part of a Nazi experiment, okay? But even though I understand the purpose of the Nazi experiment was to, treat me like I'm the other, or ostracize me at times, or sometimes like, having these dangle friends in the whole setup. Okay, I fully understand that bullshit setup. Okay, but I understand that not only me deals with fickleness. The reason why this experiment was fueled the way that it was is because it operated through people, okay? And these people were discontented in the first place. They wanted to believe that they were special. They wanted to believe and be accepted in the group. They wanted to be adjusted in society, and they were willing to do the things that they did in order to be a part of the clique, okay? So when you look at how things work and how it operates on that sort of social level, you become different. You become, what do you call it? older, wiser, more mature, understanding how the world operates. So it is a little silly, right, to think that you're going to be laughing every day, right? In fact, that's not true. But that doesn't mean that, even though for the most part, I think the majority of us carry a neutral emoji face almost every day. That doesn't mean that we can't have moments of laughing till we cry. Okay, but those moments are very precious. They're very rare, and I'm the kind of person who encourages doing it as much as you possibly can. No matter what you've experienced in life, whether you're a targeted individual or you're just somebody who's still just a regular part of the population, okay? Everybody has experienced abuse by the discontented. The discontented is a population that is huge, massive, and I would say would be the majority of society, mainly because a lot of people have fallen into this narrative that in order to be somebody, they have to tear down somebody else. And this is a very, very common mindset. And I can tell you why it's common, because I was blacklisted basically off the face of the earth by people. Okay. And people must have complied because what? It was in them to do so. So when I think about the discontented, I think of that TV show like The Walking Dead. Okay. It's kind of like they spread corruption and they absorb everyone in their path. Okay. And they convert them to the same mindset. Okay. Now, when I think of how that touches people, it's like, okay, I know that certain things get started by rumors or gossip, because that's one of the ways that you deal with a lot of bullying. Okay, they have to create some sort of narrative, or they have to create some sort of controversy of a particular person. This was, of course, a part of the experiment, but this video, who are watching this video, may not have been in an experiment. They could have. This sort of stuff goes outside of the experiment. Okay, this is the kind of stuff that goes on in just about every social circle. Just about everybody experiences narcissistic abuse. I, unfortunately, was basically like dealing with this sort of stuff, but 10 times worse, mainly because I was in this experiment. Okay, so you guys just listen to what I'm telling you so I can help you guys out a little bit. All right, so when it comes to this sort of sickness, okay, to where people are getting competitive, they lack compassion, okay. I do believe a lot of it comes from this idea of having it all. Okay, everybody wants to be perceived as having it all. And if they can reach this peak of having it all, that makes them great people. Okay, and everybody has their idea of having it all. Like, to me, I think everybody's idea of unique and having it all is going to be defined in different ways. Okay, but one thing people, I think we all agree on is, number one, we want to be able to have a good social standing. We want people to think well of us. Okay, we do not want people to think bad things of us. Okay, but unfortunately, because of the discontented, people who are discontent, they this is one of their tactics. They like to ruin people's reputation. Okay, because in their mind, we want to siphon friendships. We want to have everybody on our side. So it's a part of power struggles and things like that. Okay, this is one of the little tactics that they do. Okay, so people get sucked into this and then they join it and they become more and more of the Walking Dead, people who are incapable of thinking for themselves, people who make bad decisions, people who just go along with the herd, people who aren't really analyzing a situation. Okay, and the mindlessness of it. But like I said, this runs very deep. It runs very, very deep. Ignorance in society runs very, very deep. Okay, when you think about people who lived 40, 50 years ago. Okay, we don't come that far from that time period, and we all know what happened back then. Okay, so some of our parents, our grandparents are from this generation, and it comes back into who we are now. Okay, it is what it is. Okay, but the hatred is real. Okay, and because if there's a race to get to nothing. Now, I have really started picking through, like, even the most wealthiest person's life. Okay, so one thing I think people would think is a luxury, it would be the idea of travel. Okay, so seeing a bunch of people, eating different foods, trying on different clothes, whatever, whatever, whatever. Okay, that is very fun. Okay, but I'm sure a lot of people who have the ability to do that possibly can get bored with that. You know what I mean? Especially if they've been to that same place over and over and over again. Okay. There's certain things that, to me, I understand people want material possessions and those sort of things, but eventually those material possessions wear out and you go out and you get some more. And don't get me wrong, I would rather have a better style bed than what I have now. Than, people want their upgrades. Okay, that's normal. Okay, but some people have based their self-worth on the things that they have. Okay, and when you think about it, let's just say, for example, a neighbor gets a beautiful new car and they roll it up in their driveway and they want everybody to see it. Hey, here's my new car. The neighbor who's looking at the new car, they're either going to think one of two things. They're going to be like, hey, that's cool, and walk back into the house. Or it's going to what? Create some sort of envy. Okay, and some people think that winning is having people envy them. They think that that's a good thing. And I'm going to tell you right now, I am a victim of envy. Okay? And I'm going to tell you, to be the recipient of envy and jealousy is not a good thing. It is not a good thing. Okay? Now, it is good to be able to excel in the things that you do. Okay? Because that's what we're here for. This is the difficult part, because we are here to excel, right? But we have obstacles. We have things that are in our way that prevent us from getting to where we're supposed to be. Okay? And this happens to so many people, and this is one of the reasons why I'm following up from this video. Okay? Now, people will want to squash you any way they possibly can, because they are in this race to find or to obtain something that I don't believe really exists, other than having a certain level of understanding of how this plane, this earthly plane, works, and not having that it's too high of those expectations. Because everybody wants to live in La La Land. Everybody wants to think that we can live in a world where, we obtain things, but people aren't going to be envious and try to attack us. People are very, very primal when it comes to their jealousy, because you know why? Because they do have absolutely no sense of morality, and they have no sense of constraint, they have no sense of the law, and they have no sense of understanding that we are not responsible for them or their success. It's that simple. Okay, everybody is responsible for their own success. Everybody is responsible for uh, um, their own life. You know what I mean? And so sometimes we deal with bullies. We deal with bullies. Okay, we deal with people who are in a point in their life where they feel very unhappy and they are willing to lash out. And I will say that living life under the conditions of how things are in life, okay, it does make us lash out. We come into the world, maybe we are born to parents that didn't necessarily give us all the love that we needed, and sometimes because of that, our view is shaped based off of that neglect or that sort of abuse or whatever. Okay, in my case, I was set up for this sort of stuff. Okay, meaning like this experiment was made to put me in an environment where I was dealing with opposition all the time. Okay, now I'm going to tell you, I think I'm experienced enough to tell people on how to deal with these sort of issues. Okay, because I've obviously dealt with it. Okay, and I will tell you, it is a very painful thing to understand that in this life, the only way that we're going to get through anything, and the only way, or the only person who deeply cares whether we make it through the maze of life or not, is ourselves. Meaning, we are literally alone. We cannot count on people who around us to give us support. If we get support in this life, we should be very grateful for it. But we cannot count on it, okay? Because people can be very fickle. They can change their mind. They can flake out, and most people are of the discontented, okay? So, and like I said, the discontented can be, and it's mostly made up of family members, friends, so-called friends, okay? And this is what I'm saying about society, they have a very warped understanding of what a friend is. A friend is supposed to be your moral support system. Okay, they're supposed to support you. Okay, in their mind, if you sit down and have lunch together, you guys are friends. Okay, and they can talk about you, stab you in the back. They can sit here, plot against you, and they can still grin up in your face. And you know what? I'm still your friend. No. Okay, so this video is about understanding some of the things that the discontented do, identifying it, setting boundaries, how to improve yourself, how to stand up for yourself, okay, how to defend yourself, and how to protect yourself, okay. And I know this sounds absurd, but of course we're incorporating some magic into it as well, okay. And the reason why is because it is very difficult. Our goal in life, okay, everyone's goal in life, I believe, on a spiritual level, okay, and this is how I get through it. My goal in life is to get to my highest level. This is what elevation is when it comes to spirituality. And I choose to get to the highest level I possibly can. If I'm returning into the next life or I'm going into the afterlife, whatever it is, I want to get to the highest level of closest to God. Okay? And I do understand that our life is, even though it seems mundane, it is pointless to a certain degree, but overall we are here for a reason, and it's to be the best that we possibly can be. Okay, so unfortunately we have to deal with obstacles. Okay, and so of course I think I'm an authority on how to deal with that. So this is let me go into this video. And so let me see what else do I want to talk about before I change slides. So basically what it is we're going to learn more about how we can work our transformation of reaching towards our higher selves, and instead of falling into the trap and the same continuous mindset of the discontented. I think one of the biggest issues that people talk a lot about online would be their experiences with narcissistic people. And I do believe that that was a pretty big a group of people that I dealt with in my targeting. Now, when it comes to narcissistic people, it is basically a personality style that's characterized as having like an excessive preoccupation with somebody, with oneself, okay, and their own needs. And it's often at the expense of other people, okay. And in my case, I know that I've dealt with bullying. Maybe somebody might have been jealous of something and may have, like, felt as though they wanted to exert their preferences onto me. Okay, that's a form of narcissism. Why? Because you are basically making a decision based on a personal decision for somebody else. That's their own body, that's their own choice, and you're making a decision for somebody else. That's like, you don't do that, right? Okay, so that's just one of the kind of people, or the kind of people that we have to look out for, are those sort of individuals. Okay, so obviously that's a very common type of person, right? Narcissistic people do things at other people's expense a lot, okay? And sometimes they do it in a covert way, and sometimes they do it in a very overt way, okay? Whatever the case is, they do, always make sure that you're staying in your own lane. And it's the narcissist that likes to merge into people's lane, right? Because they really don't have any right to be in your lane, to make those sort of requests of another person. So they're the ones who are usually the violators. But now that you understand the personality types of the narcissistic person, that is in case if you may be young enough, because I would think that most people who are over the age of 20, who are already working in the workforce, have encountered a narcissistic person. Okay, you probably know several narcissistic people. Okay, so I'm just letting you know and how to define it. And then also, later on in the video, I'm going to talk about, how you can stand up for yourself against these sort of people. Okay, another sort of like disorder or kind of weird person you need to watch out for would be like the psychopaths. Now, psychopaths have an impaired form of empathy and remorse. They're not able to empathize, and they don't feel sorry for the bad things that they do. Okay, and if they do appear to feel sorry for the things they do, it's usually crocodile tears. It's like usually fake, pretending to be sorry. They may even kind of come off like they're mocking you in a way when they apologize. And they also mask a lot of their traits with superficial charm. Okay. So, like, I would say one of my bosses was a lot like that. And of course, she was very much associated with the program. What I mean by program, the experiment. And a lot of times, her appearance was very beautiful. Okay, she seemed to be the kind of person that people would respect, okay, because she was flawless and everything, okay, but she was very egotistical, and she was one of those people that had very little empathy, and she felt no remorse, okay. And this is one of this the psychopaths can sometimes, like, be born that way, and they can also become that way, okay, through things like brainwashing, okay. But whatever the case is, whether they were born that way or they became that way at some point in their life, they exist and they walk among us. So you have to be very careful about them, and you have to know how to deal with it. Right now, I'm trying to, like, in my mind, I'm always processing the fact. I mean, I'm very much aware that in this world, we are basically all we have. Okay. So we have to navigate in life. I feel as though we have to, I have to, or whatever. If you choose to, like, listen to me, that's great. But I have to navigate through life. Okay. And I have to, I'm well aware of, the toxicity that was spread beyond my control, like this, like the propaganda and the narrative about, me and my being a clone, and me being back from through the reincarnation process, so on and so forth. Now, I will tell you that the rumor and the creation of it was created by somebody who was obviously a sociopath. Okay, that rumor was enough to make people never talk to me again, or mistreat me, or abuse me, or ostracize me, or overlook me, or whatever, or have no empathy or any sort of sympathy for anything that I was suffering, when in fact, when you think about it and when you really get down to it, there are clones everywhere. Okay, I am not the only clone that came back. I am not the only person who reincarnated in a different sex, meaning like I was male in one life and then female in the next. Okay, what it was propaganda. One word or one message that was meant to harm a person. Something that was said about me that was going to make it so that these people would have the upper hand at any cost. Okay, that right there is a good example of a sociopath or psychopath, a psychopath. Okay, now in the next slide, I'm going to give you an example of what a sociopath is. Okay, but this would go under the umbrella of a psychopath, somebody who has absolutely no remorse or no empathy. And if they do have any empathy and remorse, okay, generally the remorse is usually felt because they have to pay the consequences for what they did. Okay, it's not because they realize, oh my God, I hurt somebody, or I'm putting myself in their shoes. I'm suffering because I know what I did. I understand I caused hurt. Okay, what it is generally is when you see people breaking down and crying in court and all this other stuff, it's because they've come to the realization that they screwed up and they're either going to have to face the consequences or whatever. It is never based on the harm that they caused that person. Okay, so when you look at the heart condition and the thought process of what they call psychopaths, I'm going to call that evil. Now, sociopaths are a lot like psychopaths, okay? They too lack remorse in the things that they do, okay? But they seem to be a little bit more dangerous, okay? So when it comes to like things like, like the Nazi experiment, I would say that there was a combination of a lot of sociopathic behavior in that within that dynamic, okay? So that would be a really good example of what that is, okay? No, when it comes to these people with these personality traits, whether they be narcissistic, psycho, or sociopathic, or they have some other kind of toxic negative trait about them. One thing we know for sure is that they are everywhere. Okay, a lot of people have negative vibes, do a lot of, possessive and improper things to one another, and these people are found, like I said, it's not everywhere. I come from a dysfunctional family. A lot of people come from families where they were abused in different ways, whether that be neglect, or it could be um, physical beating, it could be sexual abuse, it could be all kinds of different things. Okay, but the whole goal right now is to get to your highest self. And so when we look at some of the family dynamics that some of us come from, some of them have not always been positive. And if you did have a positive family, then you're very fortunate, okay, and you should be very grateful. But a lot of us haven't, okay, and so it just creates a cycle of negative thoughts, negative abusive thoughts of abuse, dealing with the abuse, memories, flashbacks, whatever, just the negative type of behavior that you originally came from, your platform, okay? And then, of course, when you're dealing with anytime you want to make some sort of self improvements, or you're trying to improve your life in any way, some of these people there are these hurtful people that are everywhere. These are the people that are popping up and causing you your problems. So number one would be your families, okay? Your so-called friends. Notice I put quotation marks by friends, because sometimes, people come into our life for just a reason, okay? And I know, looking back, I've had fake friends, informants, but they really weren't my true friends, okay? And like I said, I'm not the only person who deals with it. Now, the only reason why my issue is special is because I was placed under an experiment, okay? And because I had to deal with all kinds of, like, negative stuff is the reason why I'm talking about this. But I understand, just based on the things that I see on YouTube, people talking about their abusive families, or them getting, sidestepped or abused by people, and or whatever. It's out there, okay? It just so happens that, I was a target of this sort of fixation and abuse, okay? So, of course, we deal with fake friends, okay? Co-workers, sometimes, your co-workers are planting negative seeds or of doubt and thought in your mind, mainly because they may see you as a competitor, okay? They might try to outshine you, want to compete, create competitions with you, discredit you, maybe take credit for the work that you do. This is the sort of narcissistic type stuff that we're talking about. Okay, and sometimes we're dealing with hurtful people that might be our neighbors. Okay, and you may know your neighbors, you may not know your neighbors. They might spy on you, they may gossip about you. Whatever the case is, you do need to understand that we do live in a world where all of these sort of personality quirks exist in basically everywhere. So they're store clerks, bank tellers, etc. In other words, we cannot expect people to have the same level of standards that, if you're somebody who has high standards and you do not participate in bullying other people, I will tell you that bullying tends to be the behavior pattern of a lot of people, okay, and it's very negative, and it's quite shocking when you think of, especially when you think of countries that are supposed to be civilized, okay, and you find out we have a bunch of savages, okay, and we have a bunch of two-faced people, okay, and I do understand that it generates from, I had mentioned before in my previous video, the flipping the experiment, talking about why I believe at the root of the problem is, of course, people are trying to get happy. They're looking for happiness. And I also kind of touched on the fact that we do live in a monetary system. That's the way it is, okay? And I'm not contesting the monetary system. It is what it is. We have to have money to survive, okay? But it adds to the problem of people being able to have warm relations, okay? It adds to the problem of, instead of looking at children as blessings, oftentimes people look at kids as burdens, okay? So, because they're just another mouth to feed. And the reality of it is, there's sometimes people abuse their kids for these reasons, okay? So, instead of like looking at everything like it's all so wonderful and everybody loves each other, I'm being realistic, okay? I have no choice to be real, but be realistic, okay? I was a victim of an experiment that made me see things differently, to make me see things the way they really are. Okay, I don't have the privilege of living with blinders on, or to pretend that things are peachy keen, when in fact there's a lot of tension that goes on in the air, and it's always at boiling point. Why? Because we live under this this tremendous amount of stress and this need to be something that is never going to happen. Okay, so I'm going on to the next slide. And I wanted to kind of go into the topic of absorbing abuse for a little bit, because, see, in my case, because I was a part of an experiment, their goal was to constantly fill me with abuse, surround me with abuse, and things that would normally shock the human psyche or break a person down. Okay. And don't get me wrong, I mean, it has affected me in a lot of ways. I had mentioned that I'm not able to drive long distances or handle things on the freeway because of things like relating to flashbacks and stuff like that, that cause a lot of like trauma and triggers. Okay. So it has affected me in some ways. Okay. But I will say, when a person is around toxicity for very long periods of time, and it's very difficult for the majority of people to break the cycle of toxicity. And this is one of the reasons why the majority of people feel unhappy in their lives, okay? Because of the social traps, I think, that a lot of times we get involved in. Let me kind of explain what a social trap is. Okay, like, we have our families, right? And some of us don't come from the best families. But, it is what it is. That's your family. Okay, so maybe your mother abused you in a way where she put you down a lot. Okay, or she was one of those mothers that compared you to your friend. You know what I mean? Why your friend was there. Okay, and so your friend gets the message that your mother has no value for you. Okay, because your mother basically disrespected you in front of your friend, in front of somebody else, right? So in a lot of ways, that carries over for your friend or that person that you're with, the way that they see you, and so on and so on down the line. Okay, this is just an example. All right. So this is supposed to implant in your mind that you're not good enough. Okay, this is the kind of stuff that goes on in absorbing their abuse. Okay, and so that's one shot or hit at a person's psyche or their ego or whatever you want to call it. All right, so then you deal with people who want to compete with you. You know what I mean? Or if you're trying to make some sort of improvement, like pull yourself up to try to make yourself better. Okay, and this is one of the issues that I have noticed and I've dealt with a lot. Okay, because I'm talking about being trapped within your social setting a lot of times. And this is where you need to start thinking about creating boundaries, because if you start absorbing too much abuse, your life will never move to the next level. Okay, so then you need to be able to recognize and start identifying who's abusive and start putting up boundaries. Okay, so one example is of absorbing abuse is number one, putting up with allowing people to put you down. Do not let that happen. Okay, sometimes we're in situations where, like when I was a kid, my mother was somebody who was very verbally abusive. She was verbally abusive. But somehow deep down inside, I always thought to myself, consider the source. Okay, my mother was a very unhappy person. And you didn't have to tell me that. Even as a young child, I knew that. Okay, and I don't know if it's because of my wisdom from past lives or whatever, but I understood, I knew that my mother was not happy. Okay, so she was somebody who was quick to put somebody down. Okay, plus I know that she was somewhat resentful anyway about the whole adoption thing and all that other stuff. Okay, so she had her own issues. Okay, and that's just my point. My point is generally when people are mistreating other people, it's because of they're projecting their issues onto somebody else, and chances are they are absorbing somebody else's issues. We live in a world where people are not focused on themselves; they're interested in projection. And see, the difference between me and this group that was targeting me is that I understand that I am not interested in projection. I am only focused on myself. Okay, and so this is what the thing is. This is why I don't project out and disrupt. This is one of the reasons why you can become blameless in arguments and situations, because it is your right to go after the things that heal you. Okay, and then there's a lot of things that, dealing with people putting you down all the time, people bullying you, whether that be in overt or covert ways, people trying to shortchange you, breadcrumb you, disrespect you in any way, shape, or form. You need to understand that yes, you do have rights, and you do not have to put up with abuse if you don't want to. So, long-term abuse, and I can see it in society. Okay, some of it is more obvious on people than others. Okay, if you look around, nobody is perfect. Absolutely, no one is, and everybody has their problems. Yeah, and I think it's important for me to say that, throughout the years, I've had a lot of my own personal struggles and my ability to deal my confusion, dealing with the constant um, mistreatment that I would receive from my abusers. And when I say abusers, that encompasses, family, friends, co-workers, whatever. Okay, mainly because they were inspired to behave this way, mainly because they were under the umbrella of that experiment. But throughout the years, and I'm going to, hey, I think I can talk about the discontented in a way, because I do understand that there was a time in my life where I was extremely unhappy with the social situation that I was in. Okay, I was never unhappy with my life. Okay, like I was never unhappy with the fact that I was quirky. I was never unhappy with the fact that maybe some people perceived me to be childish. I was never unhappy with any of that. Never any of it. What I was tired of was dealing with the people who didn't understand me. Okay, and I was also tired of dealing with the people who wanted me to absorb their negativity and wanted to force their narrative, their description, and define who I was in a mad attempt to compete against me. And this is something abusers will do. They will definitely try to compete against you, okay, for whatever reason. You don't even have to care about being in a competition. This is something that abusers do. So sometimes you get, in this world, if you do not set up boundaries, if you do not take a stand, you can easily find yourself caught up in a whirlwind of somebody else's problems. Okay? So, and it's very important if you are on a journey of seriously wanting to improve your life, which I chose this because I could see that what was around me was causing me the pain. It was this sort of behavior, and I knew that this kind of behavior is something that I did not want to adapt for myself. Okay, so there's times when you have to break free from people. In my case, like I said, I was somebody who was born into an experiment. Okay, but there are other people who deal with toxic families. There's other people who were not necessarily in an experiment, but they're just dealing with the same stuff, that goes on in society. Okay, they got a dysfunctional family. They have, nosy co-workers, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is the reason why I'm telling you. So in my situation, my family was somehow interconnected because of me being involved in the cloning process and all this other stuff. Okay, so you know, throughout my life, I have dealt with addictions. Okay, like, I know that I drank a lot. Like when I was in my 20s, I think I drank a lot because I was dealing with the frustration and trying to figure out why is it that I'm always having to deal with this negative behavior? Why is it every time I start a job and everything's going fine, all of a sudden I'm dealing with rude comments coming out of nowhere? Why is it every time I'm dealing with some sort of irrational bullying, literally coming out of nowhere? I had no idea. But see, I do understand that there's always been this cycle. Now, when you're dealing with narcissistic abuse, you're going to start seeing and experiencing things like love bombing. This is something that a lot of times they do. The reason why is because they'll send people into your life to put your get your guards down. Okay, so you're relaxed, starting to feel like you can open up to these people a little bit. But what they're really there for, and this doesn't necessarily relate to the experiment. Okay, but what I'm saying is this happens a lot. Okay, people get gaslit. They get set up with fake friends. People do these kind of things a lot. Okay, and sometimes it's not even a game for these people. Sometimes this is just people's behavior, for one another. People come in and out of your life because they want something, and this is what I'm saying. Sincerity is very rare. Okay, and people coming into your life and having true friends is so rare. So I'm just saying is I have to be aware of that at all times. And as I navigate through life, being a single woman all by herself, I have to look at everybody with suspicion. That's just how. What else am I supposed to do, right? But I'm being realistic, okay? Because it's a dog eat dog world out there, okay? And I understand that criminal behavior is becoming normalized. Okay, so this sort of abuse is runs rampant. I'm just saying it is. Okay, and me being in this experiment proves it. So anyway, moving on. So in my course and journey, I dealt with a lot of, and I think a lot of people do. Okay, this is a part of absorbing uh, abuse. Okay, this comes from absorbing abuse. So this is one of the reasons why I don't look at people who are addicted to alcohol or people who are addicted to drug abuse, and I don't sit here and I do not vilify them. And I know for years people with forms of addiction have been vilified. People look at them like they're just such bad people, blah 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 blah. They're lazy, they fail, they're useless, they're da 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 da. And I'm going to tell you that I understand why they're in that situation because it is very difficult to try to raise yourself up in a system that is pretty much keeps slapping you down every step of the way. And I am no way saying that it's okay to sit here and abuse any sort of substance. I'm just saying is, you know, there's so many things that people go through. Like for example, I know people who deal with alcoholism, and I know there was a time where I dealt with it, and I grew to a point where my body started to reject it. Okay, it no longer let me feel any form of like euphoria or made me happy or giggly or anything like that. Before in my life it did. Okay, and maybe that's just the way I grew into it, like my hormones, my DNA changed or whatever. People do things like body chemistry can change, whatever. So long you no longer dig on alcohol. Okay, fine. But I know that anytime I've tried to make any sort of life change, okay, that it has only been because I was ready to do that. And I know there's sometimes we want to be able to force people into changing certain things. Like for example, you may love your daughter, okay, and your daughter might have an alcohol problem, okay, and I know that you would want do anything you possibly could to make her stop drinking, but the problem is that she's not ready to do that yet. Okay, and there going to be a time that something is going to happen to where she is. Okay, I'm not saying I understand that, but the problem with it is they'll go into things like rehab. Okay, and they're reading all the material, they're doing the whole thing or and whatever, and they come right back out. And slowly but surely, a lot of them, I'm saying all of them, because some of them have, there's been success stories, okay? But for a lot of these people, the reason why they go snapping right back into their little vice is because they're lacking that fulfillment. And what it really is because they're not fulfilled. Alcohol, drugs, and even people who are deal with obesity, what they're looking for is to fulfill a void. They're missing a void. And the point is like, is that void that they are missing, is it obtainable? And if it is obtainable, can they get it? Can they grasp it? Can they easily grasp it? What do they have to do? And a lot of people don't know. Sometimes it's too overwhelming for them, and sometimes they do understand how to go about it, but they don't know how to deal with what the obstacles. Because a lot of people do not support other people's vision, no matter how small it is. There's a lot of selfishness that goes on in the air, when it comes to people in general. Some people just want people to fail, and that's whatever, okay? That's one of the reasons why we have laws. So we have laws to protect things like blacklisting, gang stalking, and stuff like that. Because, you know why? Because it's human nature. People get jealous because they're not able to produce, so then they want to stomp and squash people who produce. It's just the way it is, okay? That's why we have laws, thank goodness, okay? So my point is that when I would try to improve my life, stop drinking so much, I realized that there were certain people that I have to purge in my life. And sometimes purging is a necessary part of growth, not just spiritual growth. It's just life that you have to live, okay? Because, I know that um, I would fall into the habit, and maybe this was a part of the experiment too, because I knew that there was always that pattern of I'd have a bunch of friends. I couldn't stop my phone from like ringing or getting text messages, and then all of a sudden like nobody's calling or whatever. Okay, but I do know there were times where I wanted to stop drinking alcohol, and then of course my friend wants to go out and have a drink, right? When you are trying to make some sort of life change, you have to start evaluating the kind of people who are going to add to your life. And that by cutting them out of your life, it is in no way saying that you hate them or you're wishing them harm, okay? Because believe me, I do understand what it's like to deal with being an alcoholic or somebody. I can't say I was ever really a drug user, even though I was a big pothead at one time in my life. I can't say that I would ever let me dealing with smoking weed or something like affect my ability to, number one, show up on work on time. It never affected anything that I did on my daily life or anything. So I don't know. Okay, but some people they have their views. Some people can have one drink. Some people can have multiple drinks. Okay, but my point is, people who overindulge in something. Okay, and that includes people who overeat, and I know I've dealt with it too. I'm not blaming them, but I am saying is that if you are trying to make some sort of change in your life and improve your life, then you're going to have to make some changes. And if these people do not choose to make those sort of changes, you can still care for them. If you're trying to improve your life, you have to start making decisions about, okay, is this person going to make me fall back into it? Especially if you have a friend who always wants to go out for like a drink. They want to party out, every day after work, and you've been doing this for the last 5 years, okay? But you're getting to really you don't enjoy drinking. Like I noticed that the alcohol was starting to affect my body. I understand. I used to look at my swollen ankles, then my legs would start swelling, then I would start having like stomach cramps, and then my soft. I have acid reflux, so that wasn't doing anything for me. All I did was experience all kinds of problems just for having a drink of water, for a drink of wine or whatever, so I can feel like euphoria for maybe about 10, 15 minutes, and then the rest of the night I felt like crap. And then when I woke up, I kind of had a hangover, because that's how much I hated my everyday life. I was trying to escape, even if I could escape for just a few minutes. I understand the pain that people go through. Okay, I totally get it. That's why people overeat, because they're looking to somehow comfort that sort of pain, that void, that, and also the abuse that we have to deal with on the outside world. So I am not in any way blaming or pointing it out. I'm just saying is if you're trying very hard or you want to move on from toxicity, there are certain things you have to evaluate in your life, and you're going to have to start making that change if that's what you want to do. This is what I chose to do. I chose to evaluate the people who were truly supporting me, and unfortunately I didn't have a lot of support. I had a lot of people turn on me. Okay, and there was actually, I didn't really have to have a campaign about people to me. I didn't have to do anything on my own. Okay, people were set against me anyway because I was born into this experiment. Okay, but when they were kind of like all against me, I know that I didn't have any support, but that didn't change my mind because I knew I was right. So with all that said, I have to ask the question, are you of the discontented? If you're watching this video, you may be somebody that at one point was one of my attackers or abusers, maybe somebody that I grew up with. You may even be one of my relatives. And, I will say it's easy to be unhappy or discontent with life. I have to say that I can't say that I'm 100% happy with how my life is. I like my personality. I like who I am. I am content with who I am. I am not content with the circumstances that I had in life. I am not happy with, the deceptive, um, backdrop of or storyline of my life, meaning, being born or raised, um, uh, or being, I would say, created for an experiment, and having all of that, associated with me, my name. I can't say that I'm completely happy with. But see, every time in my life where I felt as though I was not happy with my life, I don't believe that as an adult I have ever directed or projected my unhappiness to other people. And like I said, I think true healing and true growth comes from directing that energy back to yourself and becoming pinpoint focused. And I think that's something that I am. Okay. I am not going to blame or hate on people who are discontented. Like I said, I think the majority of people are unhappy mainly because, they chase after things that they think is one way, but they really don't fully understand how empty, the pursuit of a lot of the things that they chase after really is. You know what I mean? And a lot of times there's consequences to pay for the what I call, you know, pie in the sky dreams, or they want to associate with people who, I will tell you, I think a lot of people dream of themselves, associating with certain people. And in my experience and throughout like my little social studies, I understand, the majority of people do have issues and people pick you apart. And to be around people who truly have what's in your best interest, it is not very common. So I think a lot of people have dealt with abuse, absorbed the abuse of whether that be their families, the negativity of their friends. They may have, placed their hopes and dreams in false beliefs or ideologies or gossip. Because I do know that, gossip is one of the things that a lot of negative people do. And they think it's just lighthearted chit chatter. But in reality, they are spreading, and sometimes they're the ones that create the negativity that circulates throughout society, you see. And so it's easy to become one of the discontented because we find ourselves falling into these negative behavior patterns. The point is, if you truly want to improve your life, you have to understand that you are of the discontented and recognize and want to not be like that. You do not want to be a part of the toxicity. You want to heal from that so that you can be a better person, the highest version of yourself. Now, one of the many things that uh, people such as myself who've dealt with abuse has experienced is gossip. And I know that when I was dealing with targeting, for as long as I can remember, I would know that I was always the center of gossip. And I let people know how I felt about gossip. And I do recall some people trying to justify their reasons for gossip. I will say this about gossip. Gossip bonds people together. Okay, that is the one thing that bonds people together if they have some shared target or shared hate interest that they can direct their energy towards. Okay, and people generally have no other way of creating bonds other than gossiping. Gossiping. And, okay, I don't believe in gossip mainly because I don't participate in gossip because I understand the damage that it can cause. Okay. So, like I said, I base my way of living off of experimenting, um, or observing the things that were around me. Even though I didn't realize that I myself was a part of an experiment, I would observe people's behavior, their actions, and their mannerisms, and the things that they did. And I realized that I was appalled by the things that they did. They would gossip about everybody, claim to be that person's friend, stab them, behind the back. And I remember people would gossip, you know, to me about other people. And I knew good and well the same person that was gossiping and telling me the dirt on so-and-so was definitely gossiping about me, because this is how they got around socially. This is the only thing that they knew how to do. And gossip can be harmless. Like for example, if your neighbor has a new baby and the next door neighbor is talking about, hey, did you hear about so and so? They just had a baby. Is that bad? No, it's not. But what can happen when we start talking about other people, and what can become a legal issue, and which you have the right to concern yourself when it comes to the gossip that goes on around you, is if they are defaming your character. Defamation occurs, okay, when false statements are presented as fact and they cause harm to a business or an individual. Okay, so like for example, if somebody says something like, okay, let's just say for example, you work for a big department store, okay, and you are some sort of pathological liar, and you made up something about the company that wasn't true. Okay, maybe you said that this particular company was an organization that didn't respect human rights, and used children in a form of child labor, and they were heavily involved in human trafficking, or just things that made them look bad. Okay, and in fact they didn't even do that. Okay, but if you were to make up a false statement about somebody, whether that be a business or an individual, okay, in this case we're using the example as you're harming a business, then that you are basically defaming that business, and it can become a legal issue, okay, if you're lying. Okay, now I understand the legal system, so everything that I've said about what I've experienced, I have told you the truth. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why I'm bold enough to throw out, some of the abusive situations that I've experienced, because I'm telling you the truth. Okay, I would not make up something in a serious situation. Okay, so when we're talking about gossip, this is one of the things that can help you protect yourself. Okay, be very, very careful about the interactions that you have, and listen to the kind of gossip that's going on around you. Okay, and where is it coming from? The people who are saying it, and do not be afraid to confront that person. Okay, if for example, find out if they're the carrier or the originator of it. Do not let, if you have the ability to catch your perps off guard, or the offender, because not everybody's in a targeted program. Some people are just victims of gossip, but it's still damaging their reputation. Okay, so let's just say somebody comes up to you and they're trying to like imply that they know something about you based on, and just let them know, hey, I don't participate in gossip. Bring up the issue of the defamation of character. And if you suspect that you are a victim of human trafficking, gang stalking, or whatever, you need to take all these interactions very seriously, and let that person know that you're communicating with, that you do. Okay, and that you, since they brought it up, you're going to write down their name, you're going to log it, and put them on blast is what you should do. You should put them on blast and ask them, hey, I'd like to follow up with a certified letter to your house, letting you know that you and I had this conversation, and if I start to experience any harm to my reputation, this might have to be a court issue. Now, mind you, chances are this is never going to go that far. Okay, but people need to understand that there should be consequences. And yes, if you wanted to take it to that level, you should take it to that level. Okay, because you're dealing with your life. Defamation of your character is something that could harm you for the long term. It could harm you forever, just because of someone doing something senseless. So when it comes to businesses that claim to be, they always throw in their mission statement and in their intros and everything else, how much integrity they have. We are starting to see just how much integrity people really do have. Okay, so when it comes to your reputation and people who want to abuse, one of the main things that they do to try to gain control is they use a lot of gossip, and they do a lot of character defamation. They're either carrying the gossip or the form of defamation from something that they've heard, or they are the originator of it. So from this point on, hey, I'm going to tell you, and I had no problem bringing up the fact that I was a targeted individual when I was in the workplace. My last employer, I had brought it up to her several times. I let her know about my videos, and I knew she probably did know about them. Okay, the point is to hold people accountable. Okay, since people are so bold and brazen to sit here and because they always want to sit here and play the I know something you don't know game. They always want to act like they have the upper hand and hold it over your head, dangle it. There were times where this woman had a look on her face that looked very sinister. Okay, so sometimes we feel helpless. Okay, you do not need to feel helpless. What you do need to know is it's your responsibility to let them know that you take what these people say about your character seriously, and let them know that this could be a legal issue, and let them know that because they're opening their mouth and they're acting like a fool in front of you, that you're going to hold them accountable, and you are including them in any sort of future attacks that you experience. Assume that they are going to be a part of it because their behavior was inappropriate to begin with. Okay, this is why I'm saying, when you don't know your rights, you put yourself in a position of abuse. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why I was holding on for such a long time, because I knew I was right. I knew I was right. Okay, so be very careful when it comes to gossip. Make sure that you are strong enough to, stand up to your bullies, and do not let people get away with it. Do not let people think that it's okay for them to sit here and dangle things over your face, your head, or that they can tear your character down. Okay, this is what I'm saying. This is why I'm drawing the line. And so for people who are dealing with these issues, who do know, because it can confuse you, because a lot of people, they're confused. They're like, oh my goodness, somebody's doing this to me, and they get overwhelmed. Okay, you might be overwhelmed. Okay, but let people know that you're aware that your character is being defamed, and you have the right to stand up for yourself. Now, I've always thought that it was really important to understand rights. You don't have to be a walking law book, okay? But you should know, basic rights as far as how you handle things on a civil level, okay? Because I understood that, manners and etiquette, using them was to basically help you get along in social situations. Like, you say good morning, you're polite, you say please and thank you in your exchanges and interactions with people. Okay, why? Because sometimes when you're dealing with people, they try to find fault in you. Okay, so I always try to be blameless. Okay, so I always say please, I always say thank you, and so I behave in a way that I conduct myself to where I beyond reproach. That's the goal. Okay, when you're dealing with interacting with other people, because you do not want to ever have, you never want to give anybody any right to say that you did anything wrong. Even though we live in a nitpicky world, and you might sit there and try to pick on something superficial, okay? But nobody can say that, hey, I had a hand in your little beef or whatever, okay? So now I wanted to go a little bit more into the defamation types, okay? And it's really important that people know a little bit about things like how to defend yourself against gossip and that sort of stuff. Like I said, you do not have to be a walking law book, okay? But you do understand that if somebody harms your reputation, okay, you deserve compensation. And so, I've experienced in my targeting situation, because I was a part of experiment, it was very difficult for me to get any assistance, okay? Like, go to the law office and take Steve Murray to get my stuff, because a lot of people were a part of the sick operation, which this is one of the reasons why, I deserve a crap load of money, because it was obviously an illegal trafficking ring. But let me explain the difference between the two, okay? Now, sometimes you might find, like in my situation, I realized how ignorant people were when it came to things like laws, even people who were lawyers, even people who whatever, okay? Because a lot of people, like I said, they go through um, classes in college or whatever, and they pass their test, and now they are a lawyer, or they're whatever. But this includes like human resource individuals and all this other stuff. They really don't refer back to any lessons. They don't think about how things apply. Okay, so you at least should know that when somebody damages your character, you are entitled to compensation. Okay, whether you get that compensation or not, do make it understand and make it very clear to your mind, yourself, and the people who have harmed you that this is a legal issue, and you deserve compensation, and that you have been damaged. Okay, and the reason, the main thing is why are laws created in the first place? Okay, laws are created, okay, because to deviate from them is going to cause harm or damage to yourself or another person. So it should be a no-brainer, Okay, especially now people are starting to talk about this stuff, kind of stuff, more and more. Everybody should know what a law is, why it's created. So now you know, and I'm sure your perps know. But when you deal with face-to-face interactions with them, let them reiterate the fact that this is a law. This could be a legal issue. Do everything you can to shut their stuff down. Okay, so let's go back into defamation of character. This breaks down into two different things: libel and slander. Okay, now they're similar, but I'm going to tell you the difference. Okay, libel occurs when a false statement is published in written form and it does harm to a victim. Okay, like maybe you might publish something about something that did not happen. Okay, or and that could be any form of published form that was well circulated. Okay, that damaged your reputation. Okay, maybe somebody posted something stupid online that was not true. Okay, now everything I say, because I understand how laws are, that's the reason why I had no problem throwing people's names out, because I was hoping it would go to court, because you know what, I would win. Okay, so everything I've said in my videos have occurred. I've said nothing but the truth. But libel is that, exactly that. It is when somebody makes a false statement in written form and it causes a harm to a victim. Okay, so now what is slander? Okay, slander is when a false statement is made in oral form. That would be like, the regular gossip, spreading it around, whether on social media, out in the street, or whatever. Okay, and it does harm to a victim. Okay, so they're both considered forms of defamation. They're not necessarily the same, but one thing you do need to know, if you make this a court case, you need to be able to have proof. So when you're dealing with your interactions, whether that be with coworkers, even your family, you may even have to record something stupid that your mom said. Okay, because your mom made it seem like she was on to something that was creating problems. And it's sad, you have to do this, but like I said, there's a lot of people who are looking out for their own interests nowadays, and including people like your family members, okay? You do not tolerate anybody thrashing your name, ever, because your name is what makes you survive in this world. Okay, and you need to take it seriously, and you need to make people aware that you care about your name, and you're willing and ready to hold people accountable who tarnish your name. And, I do think it's important that if you start noticing, changes and shifts in your environment, like you deal with, you feel like people are gossiping about you, and you don't want to sit here and come off like, you're overreacting by any means. But if you start noticing something, don't be afraid to assert yourself. Don't be afraid to, like, if a store clerk says something that's a little off color to you, just say, hey, you know what, I dealt with gang stalking, and, I don't want to accuse you of being a part of it, but I have to take responsibility for my own safety and my peace of mind. So I'm just going to go ahead and not notate this in my book about my conversation with you. And you look at her name tag, write her name down on it, saying this person worked at whatever store or whatever. Keep your notes, okay? It's very important, because when you're dealing with issues relating to libel or slander or whatever, you are most likely going to experience the same thing that I'm dealing with, like my loss of, my dealing with struggling to make a living based on somebody damaging my reputation. Like, for example, I know part of the experiment was to say that I was different, so different, that I didn't have like the same sort of spiritual makeup as everyone else. That's a lie. Okay, that right there is a form of libel. That right there is a form of slander, because I know it was probably stated both oral and written. You know what I mean? So the character assassination is what you need to be concerned about. Also, you need to make sure, how long has it been since you've been out of work? What is your work pattern? Start keeping notes about those sort of things. Also, if you've dealt with going to any sort of therapist, whether that be even something like a Reiki healer, okay, keep receipts, proof of receipts showing that you've been under a large amount of stress. Okay, if you've been prescribed any drugs or anything, keep track of that. Keep track of your medical costs, everything that you've dealt with that relates to the damages that's been caused. And you also, it's important that you understand that this particular video is made in the United States. So I am familiarizing myself with the laws of my country. Okay, and then some of them are, most of the time your state laws kind of coincide with the federal laws and all that other stuff. Okay, they're pretty much everywhere. Some states have a very specific thing. So the point is if you're dealing with an issue relating to gossip, and you might be living in like a place like Canada, get familiar with the laws there. If you live like somewhere like maybe in, I don't know, if you live in France, get familiar with the laws there. Understand your rights, okay? I am only able to cover certain places, okay, like that relate to the United States, but you get the idea, okay? So you have to stand up for yourself. So, and like I said, they're going to vary from place to place, like in different countries. Okay, the United States pretty much has the same sort of rules and regulation when it comes to standing up for yourself in defamation cases. Okay, but like I said, where we're talking about places in different countries and stuff like that, it's just important that you know. Okay, and whatever it is like if you live in a country where you do have rights. Okay, because not every country is like that, but if you do, make sure you're aware of them. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. Okay, so another tactic of the discontented would be coercion, and coercion is basically when somebody uses threats that are very forceful against you. Okay, these are forceful actions that are meant to violate your free will and to induce a desired outcome. Okay, these actions might include things like extortion, blackmail, sexual assault, and some form of torture. Even if it's some kind of torture, like for example, I felt as though it was torturous for people to arrange job interviews for me just to waste my time. Okay, why? Because you are basically taunting a person, dangling a person's life in front of their face for some reason, because your point is to try to coerce a person either into changing a lifestyle, changing into a religion, changing your habits, or whatever. Forms of coercion are obviously, when in my case, the coercion was relating into workplace. Now, workplace laws are different than like federal laws. They're specifically made for the workplace, but what makes them different is it does encompass like the regular laws that we do have, like the federal and state laws. Why? Because employment laws are meant to protect our rights based off the laws that are already created. Okay, so like for example, in my case, I have the right to, we talked about the pursuit of happiness in the first video, okay, but I have the right to be by myself and protect myself. Mainly some people like wanted to bully me because I was a single woman and I lived by myself. Okay, mind you, this is the same group or cabal that was chasing me because they were the ones who were abusing me. They were basically wanting me to be an open target to all forms of abuse. Okay, that's ridiculous. All right, but I have the right to live alone, especially understanding like what this was. This was a program that was meant to destroy me. So what their goal was to bring in another person who was an abuser. Obviously, I would say that Lieber 14 was an abuser. He honestly didn't have anything in my best interest. But that would be a good form of coercion. Okay, coercion is basically saying, okay, for example, if you want a job, you have to give up your daughter for adoption. They're basically making you deal with certain sort of what do you call it? They want to present compromises to you that are something that goes against your free will, something that it seems oppressive, something that almost seems like it's not even worth it. You know what I mean? And it's a form of threatening your life. That right there is something that a lot of people deal with, and that is exactly one of the tactics of the discontented. And I wanted to mention that there's different kinds of coercion. There's physical and psychological coercion, and I do believe that psychological coercion, depending on how it's carried out, can be just as psychologically traumatizing as physical coercion. Like when we think about somebody putting a gun to our head, that would be a form of coercion. Like if somebody grabbed you and put a gun to your head, God forbid, and they're basically telling you you need to go to, I'm going to lead you to the ATM so you withdraw your money and give it to me. They're basically putting a lot of pressure on you, but they're basically using that knife against your neck or that gun against your head as a way of coercing you, influencing you to give them that money. In cases of psychological coercion, which when you're in a program such as I was at that time, most of the coercion is done on a psychological level. And what they do is, of course, they make use of other people. This is something, when it comes to the discontented, are always going to want to transfer those negative energies onto other people, and they use forceful measures to do so. Now, they will recruit other people to inflict psychological harm on you in various ways, which is usually a form of their coercion. Okay. This can come in when it comes to psychological coercion. They might set it up to where maybe you are being ostracized. Okay. In my case, I do believe that they use certain celebrities to try to snub me or create some sort of problem or try to put pressure on me in some indirect way to violate my free will or whatever. They use a lot of other people in their hate campaigns. Okay, so this is something that you need to be aware of. Now, when it comes to, I gave you an example of how to confront somebody when it comes to dealing with gossip. And when it comes to coercion, a lot of times it's done on a very subtle way, okay? And people do have their sneaky ways of trying to taunt you. Because mind you, coercion does involve torture, even if it's a small level of psychological torture. How about somebody being asked the same question all the time? Or somebody, alluding to certain things, kind of digging at you every time you either see them or every time you encounter different people, okay? This could be a form of a coercion plan. So, like I said, unfortunately, if you start to notice a pattern and you're dealing with somebody who's trying to bully you and you suspect that, be very upfront and confront that person. For example, I know that we had a public figure who attacked me and made a big mistake of trying to attack me and in gathering other people to pressure me with coercive tactics, okay? And they, of course, use street people, okay? Street people would be like, your neighbors, bank clerks, store clerks, whatever, to communicate messages to you. This is a part of the psychological damage that they like to cause. It's a form of torture. Yes, it is, especially when you understand what they're trying to get at, right? So, for example, I would go into a store and somebody might be commenting on like my hair, okay, for example, or they might comment on my outfit. Now, I had come to realize that this is just some of the things that they were attacking. They were trying to attack me, my behavior, my appearance, whatever. Okay, in this case, do not be afraid. If somebody compliments you and it's just like this one little compliment you got, okay, don't take it too seriously, okay? But I will tell you that on a psychological level, sometimes compliments are actually a way of hiding people's envy and people's plots, okay? And it's done in a very mischievous way. And if you start noticing too many of these, this is when you need to speak up and address that person and tell them, you know what, I'm starting to notice a pattern here. And just be very calm and casual when you bring up this conversation. You're going to have to use your voice. Confirm that person, say, you know what, thank you for the compliment. And sometimes I have to wonder about some of the things I say because I'm a victim of human trafficking and gang stalking. Now they're gonna get real tense when you start saying this because they know good and well that they're trying to be a part of it, but you're gonna put them on blast, okay? And let them know, because of that, I have been taking notes. I've been taking notes because of it. And let them know, as you know, gang stalking is becoming the new Holocaust. And I can't take any chances, and I believe that I'm a target. If they have a name tag, make sure you write that name tag on there. On your note, you need to start taking notes in your journal, what store it was, the time of day, the date, whatever. If you got something from that store, keep your receipt or whatever, okay? And chances are you're never going to have to take it to court. But what you are doing is that you are establishing and creating an understanding of, number one, you are aware of gang stalking type activity, stalking of any kind, okay, and coercion, okay, because you're suspecting that you are dealing with coercion. And because of that, you're taking those extra precautions. And if a person is really sincere, they should know. And if they don't have anything to do with it, then they're going to say, oh, I understand, you know what I mean, because this is the way we live. This is how things are nowadays, okay? And if it's a sincere compliment, chances are that, and they don't have any sort of agenda, they're fully going to understand, okay? But this is going to hold people accountable. At this point in the game, unfortunately, because gang stalking and things of these sort of programs are so widespread. We have the internet. We have people who can orchestrate these sort of, what I'm going to call it, forms of torture. It's a subtle form of torture when people are constantly hinting at damaging you in a certain way. And I've dealt with it a lot in the workplace. Like when I was working over at BT Trucking, I had one of the employees saying, you know, kind of like clapping and being, hey, yay, we're going to have uniforms, knowing good and well that this was a form of abuse to me. Okay, so in this case, that's a form of psychological torture. Why? Because, and even though a company does have the right to initiate a dress code, they certainly do. It's their company. They can do that whenever they want to. It's their company. Okay, but unfortunately, I was dragged into a company to work for a company against my will. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm dealing with forms of coercion. And yes, in my case, when the coercion incorporated my employment, which made it even worse. That's a form of human trafficking right there. Okay, but my point is, just like I was telling you, giving you ideas of how to protect yourself when you're dealing with issues related to gossip, if somebody, and you don't want to sit here and accuse or jump and down everyone's throat that compliments you, because some people, I'm going to tell you what, if I see a girl and she's styling, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to compliment her. Okay, I'm somebody who looks at what people do. Not like if they're wearing a nice outfit, it's going to draw my attention. Why? Because I love clothes. So if I see her like with a nice hairstyle and everything's all pulled together, I'm somebody who's going to compliment that. But some people, it's their little inside joke. Okay, because they know that this is some sort of death plot that somebody has laid out for you. So it's their way of kind of like letting you know it's a form of torture. Okay, so when they do this, you make sure that you confront them, let them know what gang stalking is. What you are doing is you are holding them accountable and letting them know this activity is unacceptable, even on a government level, and even worse if it's on a government level. So you don't have to go into all of that, but you do need to let them know that because you suspect yourself of being a victim of a modern day Holocaust, that you can't take any chances. And, I do think it's important that if you start noticing, changes and shifts in your environment, like you feel like people are gossiping about you, and you don't want to sit here and come off like, you're overreacting by any means. But if you start noticing something, don't be afraid to assert yourself. Don't be afraid to, like, if a store clerk says something that's a little off color to you, just say, hey, I dealt with gang stalking, and, I don't want to accuse you of being a part of it, but I have to take responsibility for my own safety and my peace of mind. So I'm just going to go ahead and not notate this in my book about my conversation with you. And you look at her name tag, write her name down on it, saying this person worked at whatever store or whatever. Keep your notes, okay? It's very important because, when you're dealing with issues relating to libel or slander or whatever, you are most likely going to experience the same thing that I'm dealing with, like my dealing with struggling to make a living based on somebody damaging my reputation. Like, for example, I know a part of the experiment was to say that, I was different, so different, that, I didn't have like the same sort of spiritual makeup as everyone else. That's a lie. Okay, that right there is a form of libel. That right there is a form of slander, because I know it was probably stated both oral and written. You know what I mean? So the character assassination is what you need to be concerned about. Also, you need to make sure, how long has it been since you've been out of work? What is your work pattern? Start keeping notes about those sort of things. Also, if you've dealt with going to any sort of therapist, whether that be even something like a Reiki healer, okay, keep receipts, proof of receipts showing that you've been under a large amount of stress. Okay, if you've been prescribed any drugs or anything, keep track of that. Keep track of your medical cost, everything that you've dealt with that relates to the damages that's been caused. And you also, it's important that you understand. that this particular video is made in the United States. So I am familiarizing myself with the laws of my country. Okay, and then some of them are, most of the time your state laws kind of coincide with the federal laws and all that other stuff. Okay, they're pretty much everywhere. Some states have very specific thing. So the point is if you're dealing with an issue relating to gossip, and you might be living in like a place like Canada, get familiar with the laws there. If you live like somewhere like maybe in, I don't know, if you live in France, get familiar with the laws there. Understand your rights, okay? I am only able to cover certain places, okay, like that relate to the United States, but you get the idea, okay? So you have to stand up for yourself. So, and like I said, they're going to vary from place to place, like in different countries. Okay, the United States pretty much has the same sort of rules and regulation when it comes to standing up for yourself in defamation cases. Okay, but like I said, where we're talking about places in different countries and stuff like that, it's just important that you know. Okay, and whatever it is like if you live in a country where you do have rights. Okay, because not every country is like that, but if you do, make sure you're aware of them. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of sum all the other kind of bullying up under this particular category, because right now I think a lot of people are dealing with bullying, and it's coming from all kinds of directions, and people are trying to make it, sometimes people try to make their bullying towards you into some sort of righteous manner, mainly because this is one way of gaining a lot of members and recruits. Okay, if you create a us versus them type of gang, then people feel as though there are strengths in numbers. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people who've watched my case unfold since I've been making these videos, and like I said, people are familiar with me. They know who I am. Okay, so they watched this whole thing unravel, and they now understand that creating these sort of issues relating to religious and political bullying always ends up in tragedy. Okay, this is one of the reasons why when the United States was establishing itself, that they made these sort of considerations and thought these things through when they were talking about the Declaration of Independence, because they understood that our freedoms are something that we need in order to have a decent or the best kind of quality of life that first people constantly have. And so we have the right to have, here in the United States, we have the freedom of religion based on my understanding, because I know that I had made reference to some of the laws on the books relating to the UK when it came to people who were into like different forms of religions, like earth-based type religions, okay? I know that I believe that they had, relieved or removed the laws that were on the books that prevented people from having or practicing certain forms of earth-based spirituality. Now in England, for the last, oh gosh, that's a while, huh? When I think about it, the 1950s, that's really, really a long, long time. That's a very long, it's a long time ago. But when you think about it in terms of how on the laws, the books here in the United States versus the UK, it seems like we were more ahead of the game when it came to laws. But when it came to actual implementation, memory of it, people actually living their lives according to it, that's another story. Okay, but still, here in the United States, we have religious freedoms. Okay, and then I do believe over there in UK, they have the ability to practice. I know there's Muslims over there and other people who practice different religions over there. Okay, I cannot speak for every other country. So if you are somebody who is dealing with religious or political bullying, your laws that you're going to have to reference, okay, are going to have to be from your country, because just because certain things are allowed in my country doesn't mean that they're allowed in yours. But the point is you need to understand your rights. My point is about bringing up religious and political bullying is this is just another tactic of the discontented. And I had noticed that there was a lot of hypocrisy. And I'm going to stand up to something very quick because I think it's very important. A lot of times when it comes to religion, it's their worldview, okay? And some people feel very strongly about their worldview because maybe they were raised in a particular religion, okay? And so they believe that this is the only standard of morality that there is. It's based off of how their family's done it, generation after generation and whatever. And sometimes people forget, hey, not everybody has the same religious views, okay? But when you deal with somebody who is trying to impose their religious views on you, okay, at least I can talk for this country, okay, and how it applies to employment or just living your life day to day, okay, because religion is written into obviously the laws for this country and as well as written into employment law, okay? So as well as political views. Okay, we have the right to have our political views. We also, and that's written into regular law, meaning street law. Okay, and street law is what to protect our freedoms, our rights, and protect us from harm. Okay, and employment laws are basically kind of a piggyback from the regular laws that we do have, and it relates to employment because you cannot be denied, you should not be denied employment based off of certain reasons. Okay, like legally, I should not be denied employment based on my race. Okay, legally, I should not be denied employment based on my religion. Legally, I should not be denied employment opportunities, promotions, whatever, advancement, whatever, based on any of those sort of things. Political views, religion, whatever, okay? But political and religious views continue to be something that people use, the discontented use, as a form of bullying tactics, okay? So in this sort of form, like oftentimes what they do is they will send people to either create debates for you or whatever. So like, let's just say, for example, you're at work and somebody's bringing up a political conversation or a religious conversation. Okay, so here you are, you're at the water cooler, you're getting a drink of water. That's all you're trying to do because you're thirsty. You're pouring your drink of water and somebody is basically picking apart, maybe like, for example, they come from a religion where women don't show their ankles. Okay, because there's some people who are like that. And somebody might put a bug in your ear like, oh, I can't believe you're wearing that. And you might say, I'm just coming up with a conversation, okay? I can't think of anything, but this is just a scenario, okay? So you're like, oh, okay, well, what's wrong with my skirt? Well, you're showing your ankles, okay? And that sounds kind of absurd for like 2024. But still, there's some people who they are, for whatever reason, their religious views, they're not allowed to do that. Okay, so in their mind, they're thinking, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing that. And you just explain to them, oh, okay, well, I have the right to do that. I'm not from your religion. Okay, I don't, I'm not a part of your religion. And let them know that even though you're not a part of the religion, that, you have the right to practice yours. And you are more than, they have the more than the right to not do the things that you do. Say, well, if you don't wear that, then you just don't have to choose that for yourself. Okay, but this is what I choose to wear. Okay, and let them know if they seem disagreeable. And sometimes you get this look on their face. They get that look of, I'm going to see if I can find that emoji as I'm talking. Okay, that look of that mischievous look on their face. Okay. And if they, in the conversation, if they start to imply that they're going to cause trouble for you, let them know right now. Okay, and let them know, hey, this is my job. Okay, and under the guidelines of these laws relating to federal as well as state, I have the right for my religion, meaning I have the right to obtain a job, continue my work, and be considered for promotions and that sort of stuff. And I am not supposed to be able to lose my job based on my religion. Okay, and let them know that you had this conversation. Let them know why you had this conversation, because let them know, hey, you know what? We know we are living in a time right now where people are creating problems for everybody. Okay, and let them know, hey, you know what? I have to make a good practice of keeping notes about these sort of encounters. Okay, number one, you need this note for your employer in case it explodes into something big. Okay, and also you need also to take this because you want to hold this accountable in case you find yourself in situations like this. And when you are dealing with, if you are a victim of gang stalking or human trafficking, you're a targeted individual, do not be afraid to throw these people's names out. And like I said, that sounds like a bold move because it sounds like I don't want to be, hey, you're not being guilty of libel. Hey, you're not being guilty of slander. You know why? Because the conversation really did take place. And if you find yourself in situations where you're having a hard time finding employment, getting back on your feet, somebody's doing something to you. Okay? Somebody needs to be held accountable and start jerking that chain. Okay? Throw that person's name out. Make sure you notate their name, the time that it happened, the date that it happened. If there are any other witnesses around, make sure you write their information in there too. Okay? And if you feel as though you need to take it to human resources, and chances are there might be a company policy as to where you have to report these sort of things, do so. Okay? And also record in your journal that you did turn that in there. Let everybody know, okay? So you need to start letting people understand that you are aware of your rights to have your political views, your political affiliations, and you have the right to have every religion you want to in the workplace. Okay, and if that person continues, let this person know in that conversation if I'm going to experience any of the following that goes along with gang stalking activity, like such as cyberbullying, if I'm starting to experience problems with my employment, blah, 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 I want you to know that I'm going to keep your name, and I'm going to also use your name as a person that I suspect being a part of a targeting program. End of it right there, okay? And make sure that you follow up. Make sure that this person understands that, yes, there is a legal system that protects your right to do what you need to do. Okay, the reason why this stuff runs so rampant is because people aren't aware of how to nip it in the bud from the get-go. At this point, if you are a targeted individual, okay, this means that you're dealing with this sort of harassment and it's amped up to like ridiculous proportions. That means everybody that you encounter, chances are is a perp, okay? And they're going to say their stupid remarks. They're going to make, side comments. They're going to sit here and try to make everything that you do as a moral issue. The thing is, they have the right to have their restrictions if they choose to within their religion, but you have the right to not adhere to that. It is the way it is. Hey, it's written into law. And so now that people are starting to circulate, get into the thought of the law process, use the law, because perps are going to know that they cannot use this as an excuse anymore, and it's going to shut their shit down, period. Okay? Now, always be sure to let people know that they have the right to practice their religion, and they have the right to have their views, but they do not have the right to merge into your own lane and prevent you from having opportunities because of these reasons. Okay? Now, I did want to bring up something really quick when it comes to religious and political viewing, and this has a lot to do with like my appearance. Okay, people will try to vilify my appearance and flip the script. Now, I have shown and expressed my compassion to people who are obese, okay, because I understand how it can suck a person into things. The difference between an obese person and like an alcoholic and a drug addict is because everybody has to eat. You got to have something for breakfast. You may not have breakfast. You may not be a lunch person. You may just be one person who eats one time a day. You might have 3 times a day. But one thing is for sure, you're going to have to fuel up, okay? Everybody has to fuel up at some point, okay? And the thing is that, I understand in the last few years, I would say in the last 25 years, obesity has gotten out of control. And there was a lot of pressure for me to gain weight, and because this was going to satisfy people who wanted to target and bully me. And I also think it's important to say that when it comes to bullying, oftentimes the first thing that they do with a woman when it comes to bullying her, the first thing that they do is they target her looks. This is the first thing they go through in psychological harassment. Now, I would like to say that, do I believe that looks are everything? Like, do I think they are? Yes and no. Okay. I believe the way that you present yourself tells a story. It is a way of attracting the kind of people that you wish to be in your tribe. It is your vibe. Okay, it is your statement. Your clothes are your statement. It is your advertisement of saying, these are the things that I believe in. These are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. These are the kind of people that I want to associate. Like attracts like in magic and in reality. What I mean by, I believe magic is a reality. Okay, but like for example, you remember back in high school, we all think about high school from time to time, right? There was always these certain crowds and cliques, and whether you were a part of that crowd and clique or not, you did notice that there was a certain common trait among certain people. That's their little clique, right? And they gravitate towards one another because they identify each other for being that group, whether that be a political view, whether that be the clique that holds their bond together, be political, it might be spiritual, it might be religious, it might be the fact that they have a common interest, okay? Especially like with teenagers probably click together because like nowadays for gaming issues, I know when I was younger, if you like certain kinds of entertainment, then that kind of clicked you together. It's that sort of thing, okay? People have the right to say, this is my vibe, I'm looking for my tribe, okay? And that's a lot of times, that's really all it is. Now, I know that I had dealt with a lot of people who were very insecure about their bodies, and I'm not responsible for people's problems, okay? But like I said, I do understand the problem of obesity and how people have given up on themselves, and just because they've given up on themselves, they themselves deal with bullying. They deal with a lot of coercion. They deal with a lot of negativity. And I will tell you, people will throw their negative attitudes and their what I call jinxes. People want you to fail on your road to being a whole and balanced person. And this is the purpose to me of maintaining a decent body. Okay, it has nothing to do with male attraction. Now, obviously, I will say that, do I attract male attention? People say this on YouTube. They say that I do. Now, mind you, because I rarely step outside of my house other than to get groceries and stuff, I don't really know. I don't pay attention to my social media pages, mainly because I'm afraid to step into the world of social media. I do remember there was a time where I was getting bombarded by, people who were claiming to be interested in me and over complimenting me and stuff like that. First of all, I'm going to tell you right now, on a spiritual level, when it comes to the Bible, I know the Bible talked about gluttony. Okay, and I do understand, a lot of times people would try to pretend or act as if their their problem is actually something righteous. Okay, like I know, because I don't know, I just remember, like, back in when I was at Merger's Family Farms, they put me through a bunch of different, like, job interviews. And when it comes to religion and women and beauty and body and everything else, okay, a lot of men, in this case, like, for example, Libra 14 was somebody who was interested in financially exploiting me. Okay, maintaining a good body is for spiritual balance, and this is something that I truly believe in, and it's my right to believe in it. Okay, and I know that there was people who were really, really, really trying to press the narrative of gaining weight. I do not believe in being overweight, period. Period. I do not believe in it. Now, do I believe being overweight is this a form of an illness, just like it is with alcoholism and everything else? And the reason why I have compassion for it is because a lot of people are confused as to, how to take care of themselves. You know what I mean? Because they've been given so much negative information on how to do it, and they failed several times. Their social circle doesn't give them the proper support and whatever. But do I believe that people want to be fat? No, I do not. Okay, and I don't approve of living that way for myself. And I know that I've dealt with a lot of intense bullying for this issue. Okay, but I do believe that our vessels are our sacred vessel, our holy temples. Okay, and it's important to maintain that. Now, some people would like to criticize that, and I know you people want to. They want to criticize. Some people will say, "Well, you're too skinny." Okay, first of all, I'm too skinny for what? Okay, I would say that my weight is not exactly the weight that, when you look at these guidelines, according to the guidelines, I'm supposed to be anywhere from like 115 to 125 pounds. Okay, and I will tell you, I'm over 130 pounds. Okay, and I have been this way for a very, very long time. Okay, so the point is that, number one, I'm your own business. Number two, this is the way that I choose to live my life, and my body is very much tied to my spirituality. And it doesn't have to be tied to everyone's spirituality, but I do say that when you are living in a body that is somewhat healthy, I don't like to use that word healthy, but somewhat in balance, okay, that you are going to be more informed. And this is what people miss. They miss being informed, meaning that they miss being back in a time in their life where they felt like they were balanced. Okay, and a lot of people are not balanced. Okay, and so they will sit here, and because of their hurt inside, their disappointment and their anger with themselves, they will sit here and try to use the excuse that this is a religious issue. Nowhere in the Bible or any religious text basically encourages people to be obese, ever. Gluttony has always been looked down upon. Okay, so, and some men would like to say, like, for example, Libra 14 would like to say that a woman, because I'm not somebody who's very sexual, okay, but there are some women who have no problem flaunting their beautiful bodies, meaning like wear provocative clothing, showing a little bit of cleavage and that sort of stuff. Okay, that's not my style. Okay, but if I'm gonna shut down something for some people who feel as though they want to vilify a woman who chooses to desire or attract male attention. That is ridiculous, and that to me is silly, and it's abusive. Number one, to the woman who desires to have companionship. If she chooses to have companionship and try to draw in suitors, okay, that is something normal that you're supposed to have. So yet they try to make it seem as though that's a bad thing for a person to do. No, it is not a bad thing. What you deal with is a lot of jealousy. I deal with a lot of jealousy, pathological jealousy, to where they're willing to make up something and turn something black into white and right into wrong. It's something that doesn't make any sense. Okay, um, this is my belief system. Okay, which I have the right to have, and to sit here and like, I believe it was Libra 14 who might have been working alongside the girl, oh God, what was her name? Selena Bruce, over at Murray Family Farms, because I know that she was a girl who was overweight, and I knew that I was attacked by a lot of overweight girls. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why, our way that they can recruit people, not only through religion, but they can also trigger you, or target you through your lifestyle, and then try to make it a religious issue. Okay, once again, let's just make up a scenario about some girl or somebody who's trying to converse you or trying to bully you for your body, which you have every right to have your body. Okay, so like, I know I had dealt with people who would come in with candy early in the morning. And all you have to do is say no, thank you. Okay, but here, what they'll do is they'll go back and they'll start conspiring and talking about you rejecting it. And if they try to add pressure, this is when you need to speak up. Say, you know what, I'm sorry, it's just not something I would like to have early in the morning. And really, you don't have to offer me any more sweets, because I don't like to eat those things very often. And let them know, I'm not the kind of person who eats a lot of sweets unless, of course, it's a special occasion. And that's my thing. Okay, this is one of the reasons why I enjoy holidays, even though I don't make a big deal out of it. But I know this is the day that I can go out and eat 6 or 7 donuts if I fucking wanted to. Okay, I understand like when I should be celebrating things and when I shouldn't, and that's what I set for myself. Okay, and you're going to encounter people who want to break you and interfere with your way of doing things, because this is a form of their coercion. This is a form of their bullying. This is when you need to speak up. Okay, and you say, look, it's my right to do that. Ask them why. Ask them, why do you have a problem with my body? And then they might say, well, you're too skinny. Well, you know what? This is how I choose to be. Okay. And I have the right to live my life based according to the law. Is what my body causing you any harm or damage? Can it damage me? And if it is, I believe that I'm a person who's fully functional. I'm able to walk long distances. I'm able to do things for myself. Obviously, I'm harming no one and I am a threat to nobody. So what is your problem? Ask them that. Okay, and then they're going to stay. They're not going to be able to say anything. Let them understand that what they're doing is violating your civil right. Okay, and say, you know what? Because of this is an issue that it could relate to gang stalking or something. I'm going to go ahead and take down your name, and I'm going to also notate this. If it's a work issue, you don't want to seem petty. Okay, you really don't want to seem petty. Okay, but this could relate to sexual harassment too. Okay, especially if they're sitting here trying to, rile up the troops by using things like, every time you wear an outfit to work, okay, you're not even being sexy at all. You're just wearing like a regular pair of pants or whatever, or you're just wearing a new outfit. It's always, woo, look at you. Do you think about it? And some people, they do not know how to be, and I would say, because I was an experiment, a lot of these comments were, encouraged by that, because I do believe that if this was never, like, people were not monitoring me, people would just know I'm dressed for work. But there was a lot of mind control that went on in this, and I didn't appreciate it. Okay, one thing is, I'm going to let this be known, this is my body. Okay, and it's the only body I want to be in. And I do believe that certain people lost their life for being stupid, especially like the girl over there at BT Trucking. Okay, she was a woman who had a nice body, beautiful face. She had, she was, to me, she was like good enough to be a model. Really. Okay, and I can't say that for myself. Okay, I can't say that for myself. But the thing, and I never felt any envy towards her, believe it or not. Okay, because I understand, to me, I look at girls and they take care of themselves and they're enjoying a part of their life that they should enjoy. She should enjoy going out buying things to adorn herself or whatever. To me, this is a part of life that people should tap into. That's my personal opinion. I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying is when I see girls who do that, it's completely understood to me, why shouldn't they? They should be doing this, beautify themselves, absolutely, okay? But she had some sort of pathological issue relating to me, and I do think that she used religion, and I do think that she got involved in this and thought it was something righteous to do. It is not righteous to do. So know your rights. So when somebody sits there and tries to pick at your body, ask them, is my body causing any harm to you or myself? Now, you might find some sort of smart aleck and say, well, you're kind of skinny, you might be anorexic. If I am, let them know, if I am, that is something I will deal with. Okay? Mind you, I know that I'm not anorexic. Mind you, I eat plenty. Okay? And I am also very healthy, meaning like my body is fully functional. Like I have no problem walking up to Walmart when I need to. And then if I needed to go somewhere further than that, I know I have the ability to do that because you know why? I'm in balance. Okay, now I could be firmer, I could be tighter, but I'm not going to sit here and go to the gym and sit here running on treadmills and lifting weights. Okay, that's really not something that I care that deeply about. Okay, and if I was to wear a swimsuit, chances are I would wear a one-piece swimsuit instead of a bikini because I don't care that deeply about it. But one thing it is, I only go so far when it comes to my body. Okay, and so for somebody to say, well, you can't have anything unless, of course, you're a certain body weight, you are threatening my life. Okay, and they were doing it under what? Religious and political bullying. I know that a lot of people, when I see people who are obese, right, and they sit here and try to use this as a religious excuse, mind you, I grew up reading the Bible, okay, and I also understand that nowhere is it advised to overeat, but I do understand their problems. And so when it comes to trying to heal and deal with yourself, whether that be alcohol addicts or people who deal with drugs, I'm going to say, unfortunately, there's a lot of obese people that you're going to have to shed out of your life. Unless, of course, they are at a point in their life where they're looking at themselves like, I harm other people. And yes, obese people are likely to harm other people, even though they don't mean to. Okay, the reason why is they have a lifestyle that other people get sucked into, and oftentimes they try to impose that lifestyle on people around them. For example, the person who comes into your office at 9 o'clock in the morning, standing over it, insisting, looking at you, hoping that you'll take that piece of chocolate so that makes them feel better. Okay, and then they get offended because you choose not to develop those sort of eating habits by eating at 9 o'clock in the morning some sweet treat when that's the only thing that's on your stomach. Okay, I'm not going to eat something sugary if I didn't eat something that was a little bit more spongy. Well, you know what I mean? Like something that had more content, whether that be a vegetable content, fruit content, or maybe some sort of high level protein, because that's going to cause me some sort of acid, weird feeling in my stomach. Okay, and I have every right to do that. I don't deserve to be pressured. This is my body, and I really found it annoying that this is what people were doing. Okay, and then trying to make it into something religious or righteous. Okay, so it's the ignorant people that get sucked into this. It's the ignorant people that don't understand their rights that get fooled into thinking that this sort of stuff is okay. It is not okay. Okay, so like I said, start being bold, and you have every right to initiate that conversation when you suspect somebody is trying to bully you, trying to team up against you, trying to force you, coerce you into whether it be religion, politics, changing your lifestyle habit. Meaning, when they change your lifestyle habit, trying to shake you out of your comfort zone, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to ruin your life. Okay, people, when sometimes your balance literally does trigger people's demons. It triggers their demons a lot. Okay, and unfortunately, you have the right to pursue your happiness, and if that's your level of happiness, that's the way it is. And they have the right to sit here and turn away. Meaning, if this person cannot control themselves, make sure you sever ties with them. And I also wanted to say, when it comes to, religious, political, or just bullying in general, or people who cannot deal with their social dynamics, sometimes family members want you to live a certain lifestyle after you are of the age of 18. I do not know what age limit, like, for example, makes you an adult over in Europe. I don't know that. Okay, I know here in the United States, you're 18 years old, you have the right to detach yourself from religious, political views of your family. You can say goodbye to your family, especially if they're abusive. You don't owe them anything. Now, if you're a minor, they do have certain things called emancipated people who are anywhere between the ages of 16 and older, who can show proof that they're able to take care of themselves. okay, by either working, have some sort of financial strategy plan so that they can gain independence from their families. And sometimes they do this because um, there might be abuse going on in the home. Okay, abuse. A lot of times, people who deal with sexual abuse in the home become emancipated teenagers, meaning they find some sort of employment, they get on their feet, and it's getting really rare for people to be emancipated because jobs are so shitty and so controlled right now. So it's very hard for some people to protect themselves, right? When the employment thing is so controlled, right? But my point is that there's a lot of things that are going on right now that are very upside down, okay? And you need to be aware of it. You need to be aware of your rights, and you need to be able to nip it in the bud. And like I said, a lot of times when you bring up this issue as being a legal issue, chances are you will never take this issue to court. But it does hold this person accountable and let them know why laws are created, because if they choose to deviate from that they are purposely, intentionally trying to cause you harm, because we know why laws are created. They're there to prevent harm for either you or someone else. Okay, so like I said, if they decide to step over that line, then they have to be held accountable. So as I was in the process of editing this video, I thought it was important for me to add some information about, when it comes to seeking legal assistance. Not everybody can easily do that. And the reason why is because, like in my case, I was a targeted individual, meaning they had connections to the people who were at the pyramid, the top of the pyramid, or the what do you call it, the they were participants in the experiment or whatever. So, it was very difficult. And whether they, were blinded of the real truth of the experiment or whatever, it shocks me how things actually play out in this world, but it is what it is. So I, as a targeted individual, got a lot of runaround when it came to contacting legal offices, okay? But for people who deal with the kind of bullying that I'm dealing with on a micro level, like I said, the reason why I'm talking about all these issues is because I was in an experiment to deal with all of the stuff that you guys are dealing with. So in my case, as a targeted individual at a certain level of a corrupt program, certain things were cut off from me. So getting any sort of legal assistance to sue, I contacted a few legal offices to sue Steve Murray when this happened, but of course, I got the runaround. But for other people, if you are not a victim, or you don't suspect yourself of being a victim of as a targeted individual, you kind of do, but you kind of don't. What I'm saying is that you feel as though you're not being closed off from other opportunities, and you'll fill out your environment. If you're closed off to other opportunities, they will give you the runaround when it comes to you contacting the legal system. Okay. But if you don't have any problems, you're not getting run around getting any sort of assistance or anything like that, and you feel like you've got somebody that can help assist you in the legal sector. Like, a lot of people have like lawyers in their network, and you can talk to these people. I'm basically letting you know what can actually constitutes creating a legal issue and using the legal system to protect yourself. Okay, I am not in any way saying take the legal system into your entire hands. Okay, I'm just letting you know there are certain things that happen to people on a day-to-day basis that occurs that causes people injury. Okay, injury to their reputation, that causes injury to their finances, and when this sort of thing happens, this should be taken to the legal system. Okay, so just be aware. At least I'm basically talking about the legal issues to make people aware of the damage of it, because when you talk to people about, like I had given examples about talking to a store clerk that you suspect may be harassing you, or a coworker that may be harassing you, the reason why you are mentioning taking down their name or whatever is because you are letting them know that their action could result, I'm not saying it is, it can result in a legal issue. And because you care about your character, you're taking the necessary steps to protect yourself, because in today's world we do live in a system where people are throwing out names on social media, people are participating in things like gang stalking, and it's something you need to take care of. Okay, so that, by you explaining this to the person who might be psychologically or verbally assaulting you, even in a very covert manner, or like, they're trying to act like they're being nice or whatever, however they're presenting themselves, you're letting them know that this sort of thing that they are doing, the very thing that they are doing, can be a legal issue. And legal laws are created for protection. So by them proceeding after talking to you, okay, if they continue to do this, then they are deliberately trying to harm you. It's like they're almost basically consenting to harming you. Okay, so do not take the law into your own hands. Just be aware of certain issues that can be legal issues that violate your rights, that you have the right to pursue some sort of legal help. For targeted individuals, what you have to do is get your message out. Okay, you cannot rely on lawyers. Okay, because a lot of times people they use coercion or whatever, or certain favors, or certain certain sort of benefits that people get in order to betray you and kind of ostracize you. So when you're dealing with being on the outskirts of this system, it's very difficult. But what you are doing is, by talking about the legal system, is letting people know that this is what is occurring, that you're part of something that is illegal. Either it's an experiment, or you're dealing with bullying, or you're dealing with something that is causing problems and affecting your civil rights, your ability to live. And go right out. You can basically, refer to things like relating to stalking or whatever, the certain things that you're experiencing. Okay. One thing is that, by talking more about this being a legal issue and making people aware of why laws are created, okay, that at least, if anything, if that's the least thing it does, is holds them accountable for whatever happens. Okay, so like, for example, I was talking about laws in my videos when on my Maria Gordon YouTube channel. And this is like when I was in the heat of my targeting. And so I talked about it, talked about laws, not just laws relating to the places that I live, which is like, the federal and the state laws. I also mentioned religious laws, since they were trying to attack me from a religious angle. Okay, so when people hear of these sort of things, if they continue to do these sort of things, try to harass you, bully you, whatever, hey, you know what? Now you knew that it was a law. You knew what a law was, so then you have to be held accountable. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people. A lot of this ended up in tragedy. But you know what? Sometimes universal law is what kicks people in the ass. Okay, sometimes it goes beyond the earthly court system. So we're just going to go ahead and just continue on with the rest of these slides. Now, one way that I'm illustrating the facial expressions is I'm using some emojis, right? And in the previous slide had talked about, that look on their faces, like that devilish look on their face. I call it the mischievous look, and apparently so are the people who create emojis, because I wanted to find the face to describe what I would see when I would deal with these certain people, and I'm using emojis to express that. This look on that face, right, is something that I've encountered so many times when I was targeted, okay? And a lot of times I would see that face, like when I first started a job, like, that sneaky, I'm doing something, I'm holding a secret over your head, this sort of stuff. And, a lot of it has to do with plotting behind people's back. That's the look on that face right there is exactly the exact expression that captures what I'm talking about. Okay. So in my experience with dealing with people who were a part of the plot to bully me for whatever reason, okay, these are the sort of individuals that I would have to deal with. And most of them had that look on their face. I remember my last job when I first started, we started off in a different location, right? But I remember walking past this one room where everybody was like sitting together, all the management, all the salespeople, or whatever, I don't know what they were called, dispatchers or whatever. We're sitting in the room, and this look, every time I walk in, it was always that knowing
you know, I know something you don't know type bullshit, right? That was constantly going on. And this is the kind of stuff that makes you uncomfortable because you don't want to be put in a situation where you're the target of gossip. You're already dealing with an environment where you're dealing with coercion. You're dealing with a very toxic environment. So I'm somebody who pays attention to body language, facial expressions, all of that. So, and I'm kind of like in this video, I'm letting you guys know that if you've seen this face, hey, someone's up to no good.
Okay, it looks like this video, Hope for the Discontented, is becoming a little bit too long. So the second half of this video is going to be titled Everyday Alchemy. Originally, this was supposed to be one big video, but I don't really want it to be one big video. Okay, so Everyday Alchemy is going to be a video that has a lot of different spells broken down by some of it's going to be the days of the week, and it's also going to be about, you know, things that I did for personal improvement and satisfaction. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.